Have you ever made a mistake in your business that cost you thousands of dollars? Because I certainly have. And in this episode, we are going to talk about my $6,000 hiring mistake that I made earlier this year in 2024. Welcome back, y'all, to the Profit and Prosper podcast, the podcast that helps you take home a six-figure paycheck from your business without sacrificing your life today. This week's episode of the podcast is really a continuation of last week's episode where I talked about the 3 things that make you want to burn your business to the ground. And for the next few weeks, I am going to be sharing some of my biggest lessons learned from growing my business and building my net worth so that hopefully you can learn from the mistakes that I've made and adjust your own business plans accordingly. I've been having a lot of conversations with people lately about team, and it seems like people view their team as either the best thing or the worst thing that has happened to their businesses. For me, I'm not saying that my team, growing my team, has been without its own trials and tribulations, but honestly, I would not have the life that I have currently had I not grown Young & Co. the way that I did, had I not built a team, because I think I would have stayed in the box that I put myself in the finance box. I stayed in that box for a long time because that was my corporate background, and I thought that that's what I needed to stay. That was my lane I needed to stay in. Building my team enabled me to step into the CEO role faster in my business to help me be the visionary, which is definitely what I'm meant to be, and to be able to grow my own personal brand the way that I have, plus run my life the way that I do and be able to be more present for my son without having to work staring at my laptop like I used to have to do in my corporate job for 60 hours a week. But actually, I think that team is one of the biggest reasons that people tell me they don't want to grow their business to be quote unquote too big, because they think their business is going to get bigger. They see all of the potential problems that come with running a team, and they just think to themselves, I don't want to do it. Or maybe they try it and it doesn't go the way that they want it to go. And then they decide, you know what? I don't want to have a big business. I just want to stay small and just be me. And of course, I'm not here to tell you what size business you should have at all, but I do want to tell you that growing a team does not have to be the worst thing in the world. When I see people with team members who are not performing up to par, the first place that I look is not with the team member. It's with the CEO. A lot of times when our team members aren't doing the things that we want them to do, if they're not providing the quality of work that we want, if they're not communicating effectively, it's actually you as the CEO who is not setting the expectations, who is not communicating, who is not, coming with a cohesive plan for the team to be able to execute. You don't have offers that make sense to your team to be able to deliver. They don't understand what they're doing or why they're doing it. So the first place I look when I have people who struggle with team is back to the CEO. And I don't say that to be mean or anything, but I think that my point is that a lot of times when we have these difficult areas in our businesses, a lot of times we will think there's something external that's causing it. And so in this case, it's the team member who's not doing what we want them to do. But in fact, the only thing that you can control in your business is the way that you show up, the way that you communicate and lead your team. So if we change those things and improve your communication, improve your overall business structures, then it makes your team a heck of a lot easier to run and manage. It makes it easier for them to be high performing and to do the quality of work that you want them to do. So, little mini rant about team challenges aside, these conversations have just been coming up lately because I opened up call spots for the Wealthy Women Collective, which I'll talk about later. And these are some of the conversations I've been having in my DMs, and I obviously have thoughts. But let me tell you about my hiring mistake that I made earlier this year. So here's a little backstory. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about the accounting firm that we acquired back in late August 2023. And that firm was down in Florida. As with many accounting firms out there, it was heavily in person. They had an office, lots of paper, lots of in-person meetings, lots of clients coming to drop things off. So we see, of course, a lot of opportunities to improve and streamline the systems and get the firm at somewhat of a discount. The seller of that firm was pretty heavily involved in a lot of the work and did most of the client meetings. So going into it, I felt like we were going to have to hire another full-time CPA level person to take over that work that he was doing because we could have absorbed some of that work with our team, but not all of it. At least I didn't think that we could when we first bought the firm. So we closed on it in August 2023. Through September and October, the seller actually continued doing the same things he'd been doing through that October tax deadline. And we kind of just let him continue running things. So then in November, December was when my team started taking over and transitioning. And I had in my head that we were going to hire that CPA person to start around that same time to take things over. I posted a role in Florida. So the office that we bought is in St. Petersburg near Tampa, Florida. So I posted a role down there and I actually have found this multiple times when I post a role. If I post something that is in a local area or even in like a kind of small regional area, if I post that the role is, for somebody in that vicinity, even if it's remote or hybrid, I have not found nearly the number of qualified applicants that I find when I post a fully remote job and open it up to the whole US. But in this case, I needed to find somebody who was going to be near that location so that they could, if needed, go to the office maybe a couple times a month to have meetings with clients and then handle all the workload that the seller had done, of course, in our virtual environment. But I was actually really shocked at how few applications that I got for that role that I was interested in talking to, and actually traveled down there in late November of 2023 and interviewed some people while I was down there. And honestly, none of them really worked out, y'all. Like the applications we got were just really not impressive, and we didn't get many of them to speak of. At the same time, what I came to realize was that I probably would have done this too if I was selling my business, but the seller appeared to have pulled a good bit of work that historically would have been billed out in late in September through December when we bought the firm. It seemed like a lot of it had gotten billed before the close date. And so that meant we got less revenue in Q4 than we would have expected to have gotten. And you've heard me talk in, I guess it was several episodes back, I talked about how that business has an hourly billing structure, and we've been slowly converting clients over to a flat fee or a monthly retainer. And that has been a really difficult shift because I'm used to having just monthly retainers and, consistent revenue coming in every month. So I decided to sort of delay hiring because I wasn't excited about the applicants. The workload wasn't super high anyways because of the timing of things. And so I was like, you know what? I'll just aim to have somebody hired by January to come in prior to the tax busy season for 2024. But during that time, because I delayed hiring for all those reasons, I had people who were pressuring me to hire somebody down there in person. We had clients who were accustomed to having in-person meetings, just being able to swing by the office anytime they wanted to. And that's not the model that I have, nor do I want to ever have that model. They were just accustomed to that, and they started getting, a little bit frustrated that there wasn't another CPA down there, that we hadn't replaced the seller. So I was really feeling pressure to hire somebody. And one of the people who had applied for the role had a pretty good resume, had really good experience. But when I reached out to interview this person, they said, you know what, I've already found a job, so thank you for your interest. They actually reached back out to me and said, hey, you know what, I really like the idea of your firm. I'd really like to interview and just see what it's all about. And so I said, yes, let's talk about it. So we went through the interview process, and something that I have done since I was in my corporate job. So I left my corporate life back in 2020. At the time, I had like 22 to 25 people who all reported up to me through various managers and things. We hired a lot of people while I was at that job. And then prior to that, I worked in public accounting. I was a senior. And so I had a staff who would report to me. I did lots of interviews, lots of recruiting. Something that I always did when I interviewed people is I would rate them, sit down with the other people who interviewed them and really rate them, which started in public accounting. That's what they like to do with candidates. Maybe not on the same number scale that I like to use, but I do like to use a number scale and say out of 10, how good of a fit is this person? So I'm a manifester for human design, and I think that this probably makes sense that when I interview someone, I'm not a human design pro, but when I interview somebody or when I have a consult with a potential client, I tend to have a pretty good gut instinct about whether they're going to be a good fit or not. So in my corporate life, I would sit down and say, hey, how do we feel about this person? Are we excited to have them come back? Do we feel like they're going to be a good fit for the team? Kind of rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, like where do you put them? And I was pretty firm on never wanting to hire anybody who we would rate below an 8. The reason for that is that I found if you hire somebody who you feel is less than an 8 in the interview, when people are putting on their best behavior, then there's more of a likelihood. Like basically everybody, when they come in for the job from the interview, they're going to fall down a few scales, right? Because they put their best foot forward and because it can be hard training and transitioning into a new job. So people tend to fall down. If somebody's an 8 though, they might fall down to a 6, right? A 9 may fall down to a 7 or a 6, which is not terrible. And you can usually train them back up to be an 8 or a 9 or a 10. But when somebody comes in, let's say at a 6 out of 10, a lot of times they'll fall down to a 3 or a 4. And that, my friends, is kind of a miserable place to be. When you have somebody who you feel is not a really great fit for your team. And in my corporate job, I actually only fired one person. And that one person was the one who I compromised on my rating scale, y'all. When I interviewed this person, feeling the pressure, I actually interviewed them right before, it was like the last couple days before we all left to go for the week between Christmas and New Year's. The office was going to be closed and we were going to come back into busy season basically. And so I was feeling really pressured to hire somebody. I actually interviewed them. One of my other team members interviewed them. And then the one person who was down there physically in Florida went and had like coffee with them or something. And across the board, we were like, yeah, they're probably okay. I felt like it was a 6 out of 10. And I compromised on my standards. And I should have known better, but I allowed for the pressure from other people to influence me to make a hire when I should not have made a hire. So we get back from our holidays and it's the first day back in the office. And we had our onboarding call with the new person. And I just remember being on the call and it was like a switch had been flipped. There were just things that were being said by this person that I just wasn't super comfortable with. The overall demeanor was just wildly different. And that same day, I actually had a call with one of our clients who was also our marketing team for Young & Co. So we are each other's clients. And I remember sitting there talking about marketing, but thinking to myself that I would never be comfortable having this person represent my business to this client. I would be so embarrassed to have that be the representation of what happened on our onboarding call. The things that were said were just kind of crude. I would never let that fly. And I made that decision. We had our call, I think, with the marketing team at like 1 o'clock on that day. I made that decision as soon as I got off the call. I sort of touched base with my 2 other managers on the team. My instinct was, you know what? No, I've made the decision. I know it's not a right fit. I just need to not move forward. I need to let it go. I need to rip off the Band-Aid. So I did, and it really sucked. It was incredibly embarrassing and very difficult to call this person up on day 1 and say, I'm really sorry, but it's not a good fit, both in terms of personality, but also combined with the issues that we were having at the time with cash flow, where the work being billed was just not as much. We didn't have the volume that I wanted to have. So due to both of those things, we let this person go. And I ended up giving them a full paycheck as a payout, like as a severance, if you will. They also got the 401k match. They also got a laptop that I mailed that I never got back. And so all in all, I did the math plus all of the recruiting fees and things I paid to do background checks and have the job advertised was approximately $6,000 is what it cost me. And that was a really hard day. I honestly felt like I was going to throw up. My stomach was in knots. I was so anxious. It was a really hard day, but I have zero regrets about doing the hard thing. And I learned a really valuable lesson, which is to really not let these other external factors push me into making a decision that I know I don't need to be making, that I know it's not the right decision for me. So, you know, the phrase where people say, hire slow, fire fast. Well, in this case, I hired fast and then fired fast. So we ended up not hiring a full-time person down there between not needing as much in-person client support as we thought we would, and being able to hire some flexible contract support for the busy times and just flexing the timing of when we get the work done. And here's probably the most important thing that you can take from this story. I did not allow that decision that I made mean anything about me. Yes, it was a poor decision on my part, and I fully own up to that. It was a poor decision, but I did not make that mean that I'm not able to run a team, that I'm not able to be a good leader and hire good people, because I have multiple times in the past. A lot of times we have these things happen, especially when it costs $6,000 or more. A lot of times, you know, we allow these things that happen to define us, and they really shouldn't. Okay, so me making that one decision, it was a learning opportunity. I corrected it quickly and moved on, even though it really, really sucked. And I won't get into it too much here in this episode, but that experience actually has informed a lot of our team structure for this year. And it made me rethink needing, you know, as many full-time employees as I thought we were going to need for 2024. And in fact, we will have less full-time employees at the end of 2024, most likely, unless something changes, than we did at the beginning. Just because as we have team members who leave, I'm finding that it's okay to keep our core team being, you know, full-time salaried employees, and then using flexible contract support for some of the other like ebbs and flows of work. And I honestly probably would not have been able to do that model had I not had that experience of thinking I needed a full-time person, hiring somebody and then letting them go, and then getting through a busy time. Not that it was the easiest thing in the world, but getting through a busier time in terms of workload without having that full-time person and using contract flexible support instead. Before we go, I do want to let you know that my newly revamped mastermind and group mentorship program, the Wealthy Women Collective, is officially open, and I am booking call spots for a handful of women to join us in the month of June. The collective is for established female business owners who want to grow their businesses. You want to scale your business up to where you're making $20,000 to $30,000 or more from your business every single month, as in money in your pocket. And you want to get yourself on the path to building 7 figures in wealth in the next 2 to 5 years without sacrificing your life, without spending the next 15 years of your life staring at a laptop. If you basically want to have it all, which I know I personally do, the collective is for women who have those really big goals and really want to take their business to the next level in 2024 with the closest level, the highest proximity level of support that you can currently get from me this year. In the collective, we're going to work on scaling your revenue up to high 6 to 7 figures and also increasing your profitability so you can take home a 6 or multiple 6-figure paycheck from your business each and every year. And we're going to prioritize doing it in a way that allows you to save more money, put money into investments, buy the real estate that you wanted, or start buying businesses like I did last year. Maybe you want to be able to make a consistent enough paycheck to take your spouse out of their corporate job, or maybe you just want to structure your business to make really great money while working part-time hours. Go to sarahhyoung.com/collective to book a call with me where we're going to talk through your next steps for your business, what you need to focus on, and what I think you can do inside the collective to grow your business, make more money while working less. So that's it for this week, y'all. I hope that you enjoyed hearing about my really embarrassing business mistake that I made, and come back next week for yet another one that I'm going to tell you about. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Listening and learning is great, but implementing what you learned is even better. So what's one thing you can do this week to make more money in your business, save for your financial future, and start living your most prosperous life? If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and share with a friend, because it helps me reach more amazing female entrepreneurs like yourself. See you in next week's episode.